Well, welcome again to a new edition of WIN TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes. Glad to join you for another week of Washington Informer News. And if you're watching us on Facebook, why don't you go ahead and what do we want you to do? Just go ahead and continue to share this program. Thank you, Chevry. Share this program with your friends and colleagues and everybody so that we can have everybody joining us today here on WIN TV. Joining us today on WIN TV, we think you have a great show. We're staying with the theme, of course, of not only COVID and and the vaccine and how we can keep our community safe, but for many of you all who care, and I'm one of those, April 22nd is Earth Day, and the theme for Earth Day this year is Restore the Earth. And so we're continuing with that theme and bringing folks on who are telling us how and what they're doing here in the nation's capital and the surrounding regions to keep our Earth safe, to restore our Earth, and to keep things sustainable. And so we're happy to have with us on the show today Nathan Harrington, founder and executive director of Ward 8 Woods, who's going to tell us about what his organization is doing in the woods in Ward 8 and things that can make it more trekkable and more importantly, some discoveries that are in the woods that we don't even know about, but hopefully we'll learn about because of the work that they're doing. We're also going to have Keith Anderson, director of the Department of General Services, who'll share what we need to know about the department's environmental work. And we're going to have Andy Navarrete of Capital One and Akite Daniel from the Community of Hope here in Southeast to talk us through a partnership that they have tackling vaccine disparities here in the nation's capital. And lastly, since this week was National Library Week, there's so much we could talk about regarding our local libraries, but aren't we excited, at least I am, about what's going on with the Martin Luther King Memorial Library, the renovation of that building, and all of the resources that are going to be available to us, once it's fully open, but I think it's partially open now. And Richard Reyes Gavilan, I hope I pronounced his name properly, is also joining us. He is the executive director of the DC Public Library. And so he has lots of great news and information to share with us. And lastly, I want you to stay with us as we bring you the weekly edition of WI Bridge, the segment What's Going On with the Media Prints, and this week's featured artist on Sounds of the DMV. That's the tail end of the show. Some people call it the third hour. We call it the fifth quarter. So stay with us till the end. Don't go away because they always have, WIN TV always has great segments. Well, have you picked up a copy of this week's edition of the Washington Informer? I have our copy here for you. And so I hope that you have picked it up. It's available at newsstands throughout the DMV. And if you haven't picked it up, or you don't know where to get it, you can always read it online at WashingtonInformer.com. And while you're there, we hope that you will subscribe to our daily email newsletter. We want you to be a part of the Informer family so that we can continue to provide you with lots of news and information and special offers from our advertisers and just to keep in touch. And so we want to thank those of you all who have subscribed, and we welcome all new subscribers. We want you to also feel free to follow us, again, as I said earlier, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and follow us on YouTube. And you know what? We'll follow you back. So we hope that you will continue to join us on YouTube at Washington Informer TV. All one word, Washington Informer TV. Well, we at the Washington Informer are offering our condolences to the Washington Teachers Union director, the president, and the family of Elizabeth Davis. She was a fierce fighter for teachers and for children throughout the District of Columbia. She died in an automobile accident on Easter Sunday. And it was shocking news, and we're really, really going to miss her work. But we're going to continue to support her efforts here in the nation's capital. We also lost a lion in Congress with the death of Florida Congressman Alcee Hastings. a former newspaper publisher, judge, and a member of the House of Representatives. Congressman Hastings, who was a member of the House of Representatives from Florida, dedicated his life to public service. He too will be sorely missed. And sadly, we also learned this morning of the passing of Prince Edward, husband of Queen Elizabeth, and to whom he was married for more than 70 years. We heard news that he died this morning at the age of 99. Well, today is day 10 of the Derek Chauvin trial in Minneapolis. I'm sure some of you have been glued to the television and have heard what we already knew. Nothing done in George Floyd's life contributed to his death, except the knee on the back of his neck. Up next, the expert testimony of the medical examiner is coming, and we want you to check out the updates on the trial at WashingtonInformer.com. We talked this week about the I don't know how this trial is really bringing a lot of anxiety into the lives of not only Black people or Black children, but the whole community. It's been a horrific thing to watch, but it's available to watch, and at least we can see how justice rolls out in this case, hopefully. As of Wednesday, there have been 3,488 new employment claims filed with the DC Department of Employment Services here in the District of Columbia. This brings the total of unemployment claims filed during the COVID-19 public health emergency to 189,791. Those are unemployment claims filed this year alone. It is being reported, not this year, but since COVID started. So it's been about a year. It is being reported that some who filed at the beginning of the pandemic still have not received their unemployment compensation. And so our reporters are going to be following the story. And if you happen to be one of those individuals, we want to hear from you. So reach out to us at news, N-E-W-S, at WashingtonInformer.com. We want to know how you're making it during this pandemic and how many times have you reached out to the Department of Employment Services to try to get your unemployment compensation and how you're surviving, as I said, during this period. So, send us an email. If you have a story you want to share, send it to news at WashingtonInformer.com. And of course, the most troublesome story is about gun violence. All across the country, we're beginning to hear more and more stories about mass shootings. And a shooting took place last week at nearby Fort Detrick in Maryland, leaving 2 people seriously injured. And 5 people were shot right in this neighborhood in Congress Heights last week as well. As of April 8th, just 4 months into 2021, 51 people have lost their lives due to gun violence. Many of them females, many of them young women, and that's here in the District of Columbia. And those that are just the numbers of lives that were lost. We're not talking about those who've also been injured or maimed or due to gun violence. So we don't have the numbers of all the incidents involving guns, but we suspect that the number is very high. And we're concerned, and like most of you, we want it to stop. Our writers will be following President Biden's effort to reform gun laws in the nation, and we'll report what the officials in DC and neighborhood groups are doing to curb gun violence as well. It's really sad. And the crazy thing about it, I'm just going off script for a minute, is that in many cases, a lot of the victims of the gun violence, their perpetrators are still out there. The police haven't been able to identify them. And so it makes all of us feel a bit insecure because of the many guns that are out there on the streets and how callously people are using them. So coming up next, we're going to bring news from our own reporter, Curtis Knowles. I'll be back in a second.
This is Curtis Knowles reporting with WIN TV News. Washington, D.C. will be opening vaccine eligibility to all residents over the age of 16 on April 16th. Residents can register for the vaccine through the district's online portal or by phone. This revelation also comes with the relaxing of COVID restrictions coming on May 1st. The city of D.C. lost a guardian with the tragic passing of Elizabeth Davis. Davis passed on Easter Sunday due to a car crash. Davis was the president of the Washington Teachers Union, who fought vigorously for the rights of teachers in the city. A statement from the union says that we are confident that her legacy will continue to shape the WTU as well as education across the district. The city of St. Louis has elected its first black female mayor, Tashara Jones. Jones was previously the city's treasurer, as well as serving 2 terms in the Missouri House of Representatives, at the time becoming the state's first African American and first woman to ascend to the post of Assistant Minority Floor Leader. The state of Maryland has passed a state budget of $52 million. The budget was passed last Friday with 125 House votes in favor. The budget is aimed at boosting the state's unemployment system, enhancing broadband internet access for students, and other capital projects such as renovating parks and other buildings. This is Curtis Knowles with WIN TV News.
Thank you, Curtis, for giving us that update. So here we go with our guests. I'm really, really excited to have Andy Navarrete and Akite Daniel, who are going to join us, they're right there. Good. Welcome you all. Welcome to WIN TV. Andy, you're with Capital One, and Akite, you're with Community of Hope, like I said, right here in the Ward 8 community. And you all are trying to address the issue of the COVID-19 vaccine disparities. I mean, there's been some questions about, who's getting the vaccine, how they're getting it, how accessible it is. Andy, I'll start with you. Capital One, why did you jump into this?
Sure, and Denise, thank you so much for having us on, and really love the work that the Washington Informer performs here in this community. As a lifelong Washingtonian, it's a privilege to be able to talk to you. For Capital One, oftentimes, people say, well, why is a bank interested in healthcare? And for us, when we look at all of these sort of interconnections between the kinds of challenges that our communities face, what we see is that oftentimes something like a healthcare crisis can turn into an economic crisis. And we have certainly seen that play out nationally, and in particular here in the DMV. And so, as a company that was founded in the Washington area and has over 10,000 associates living and working in this region, we know that the health and well-being of this community is absolutely critical to our success as a company. And so when we looked at the extraordinary toll that the COVID-19 vaccine has taken on the Black community in the DMV, on other communities of color, and not only the direct toll, but also the revelations and greater transparency that has been brought to the challenges that were already present in these communities, we know that health dislocation led to an economic dislocation. And so as a financial institution, as a company that is committed to supporting the cause of socioeconomic mobility within our communities, we knew we had to step in here and find partners who could help us educate and make available to the community access to these critical vaccines.
And Akite, thank you. Thank you for that, Andy. It makes a whole lot of sense, because we've seen how this pandemic has played out, particularly in communities like Ward 8, where we are. And Akite, that's where you operate. That's where the Community of Hope is. And so how are you all addressing the idea of, at least, I know you were involved in major COVID testing. And so now with the roll out of the vaccine, how's that working?
Hi, thanks, Denise and Andy. It's critical for us. We have been in this community for a long time, and then COVID hit, and we saw some of these things, right? So 75% of the deaths in Washington, D.C. have been Black Washingtonians from COVID, while Black Washingtonians only make up about 45% of the population. So it's really critical for us. And at this point, we are still testing, we are still seeing patients, but COVID and death from COVID is not preventable. So every time I personally, or we as an organization, hear about a patient of ours that is sick in the hospital that passed from COVID, now it's preventable. Now we have to think, hey, what if we had gotten to them, last week? What if we had reached out to them last month, right? There's a pretty decent chance that they would not have passed away. So it's really critical for us. And is a huge threat to the health and safety and economic mobility of our patients. So it's important.
So share with me how the partnership works. Because, I mean, you seem like you're in two different parts of the spectrum, but you've come together. How does this partnership work? Oh,
Sure.
Andy,
Well,
want to start
sure.
with
No,
you?
and you know, one of the things that we recognize is that we can't do what we do alone, and so you know, for Capital One being an integral part of the community and leveraging the wonderful resources that already exist in our community is oftentimes how we find the ability to have a real impact. And so, Community of Hope is an organization that we have known and work with for a long time. We knew of the wonderful work they were doing in wards 1 and 8 to set up vaccine clinics. But we knew that one of the opportunities was how do you restore and build both a sufficient level of trust within the community for the vaccine, but also equally importantly, break down some of the barriers to access that exist. I mean, folks, I think in the narrative have focused a lot on trust, and that is an important issue. But the fact is that one shouldn't need a computer science degree to figure out how to take care of their health needs. And so finding the organizations that are trusted within these communities, that have access to the individuals within these communities, and that have these pre-existing relationships, we felt that was the way forward to make sure that we can make a difference here as well. And Akita and Community of Hope, I think, are just doing heroic work in terms of finding volunteers. You know, some of our older citizens and residents who have a lot of sway in their communities to deliver this message and to really help bridge the divide that exists between knowledge and access and the right health outcomes. So we really have found their work and their partnership to be invaluable.
So is this a funding relationship? Is it okay? All right.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to figure out. And what difference is it making, Akite, for you all to have Capital One involved in this?
Really invaluable. So for about 2.5 months, we were just here, right? Doing our best. We didn't really have much support. And thankfully for Capital One stepping in, now we have financial support as well as technical support. So we were already doing testing, seeing patients, you know, triaging patients, answering phone calls. We were doing so much, and we were really stretching our staff and our capabilities thin, right? So now Capital One steps in with financial support, as well as a lot of media support, right? Helping us get the word out about vaccines. So we can, as of, I believe this week, we'll have a dedicated team working on COVID vaccination, right? So we can really ramp up to our goal, which is about 600 vaccines a week. So support from Capital One makes that possible in a way it was not before. It was hard.
Well, I'm glad that they reached out to us because we know the work that the Community Hope is doing in this community, and like Andy said, in Ward 1. And so, I mean, when we talk about disparities, one of the issues, Akite, that you've probably seen, and I really want you to speak to it, is the reluctance. How are you all dealing with that? The people who are expressing reluctance about getting this vaccine? And what extra measures does this grant allow you to take to sort of get people comfortable with the process?
Thanks. That's a really important point, Denise. I think the first important thing that we did is that we're here, right? So the first thing you can do is have a relationship. If you don't have a relationship with someone, you're not going anywhere. So we've been in the community for a while, right? We know our patients well and intimately. And so COVID hit, and this is a health crisis, right? So we have tried to be there with testing, with education about the virus, how to stop the spread. Then vaccines came on the scene, and they've been a lot of questions. So we've been doing our best through our social media to educate, to reach out to people and let them know about the availability of vaccines and appointments. Myself as a provider, I talk to every patient I encounter, talking about the vaccine, asking, hey, what are your questions? What are your doubts? I love to hear what patients think, right? So I love to ask, hey, why don't you want to take it? Or I might have a patient who is 60 and they have their son, their daughter, their grandson telling them, oh no, I don't want to take it. And I can kind of talk to a family about it. So why don't, what questions do you have? What questions do your cousins have? What does your auntie think about it? To really get to people and just, remind them of the dangers, right? So we are seeing very sick patients. We have lost patients to COVID. from on the health side and the other side of the economic impact, which Andy mentioned. If you don't have good health, you're not going to work to make money. And now we're kind of seeing that on a nationwide level, right? So just reminding patients how we have all been impacted, the risks, especially the increased risk that here in Ward 8 patients are facing from contracting COVID, becoming really ill, having symptoms that don't resolve, and death from COVID. So it's a constant work every day. Every touch point that we have with a patient, we're talking about the COVID vaccine.
Well, one who has had hers and
Me too.
feeling good, feeling pretty comfortable and safe. All right. So we're part of the club. We can get together with our masks. Right. We're still wearing masks and we're still saying maybe not 6 feet, but but it's still important because we want to make sure that our community is safe. This has been, I think, a fantastic partnership. And I'm really glad that, both of you all were here to share this with us. I know that Capital One is not only here in a partnership, but also has a presence in the DMV. And so it's good to have an alternative solution for our financial concerns. And so we're glad that Capital One is here for that. And Keitha, I just want to ask in closing, if people wanted to get a vaccine there at Community Hope, what would they need to do?
I would definitely point them towards our website. We are working really hard to vaccinate our patients. We do not waste a single dose. So if doses are available, right, we do have a standby system. And if it seems that the fastest way to get a vaccine is not through us, we're happy to point people towards the Department of Health as well. We're, as you mentioned earlier, DC is doing a great job in ramping up availability to vaccines. So the DC Department of Health website is also a great place to start. But, come information when we want to give it out. So you can definitely reach out to us via our website.
And Andy, I can't let you go without having at least asking you about Financial Literacy Month, this
Sure.
month of April, because there's so much we need to learn. And so tell me what Capital One is doing that will help to, prepare people for some of the issues that they're, one, I mean, people are getting those stimulus checks, right?
Yes.
And so we want to make sure they do the right things with that. People are getting their tax returns, right? And so if there's ever a time we need to be financially literate, it's right now, because that money can go just like that. So what's up with that?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, Denise, and something again we're sort of acutely mindful of that the timing of this works out extraordinarily well. And one of the things that we recognize is that the stimulus checks are an opportunity to help bridge gaps in employment, bridge gaps in people's needs, help make the rent payments and car payments and other things that are so important. But it's also an opportunity in some instances for people to build a bit of a nest egg to help with that next emergency expense. And we recognize that that's such an important part of the equation as well. Capital One last year launched what we call the Impact Initiative, which is a $200 million and 5-year commitment to improving socioeconomic mobility. So we like to think of financial literacy actually as a stepping stone towards wealth building within the community and closing some of the equity divides that have plagued our society, I think, for so many decades. And so the Impact Initiative, in addition to supporting great causes like this one, is also supporting the building of affordable housing, workforce development, and skill building within Black and Brown communities, financial well-being, better understanding of one's financial services picture, and all of the various complexities that one needs to navigate in order to do that successfully. And then also the incubation of small businesses, again, with a particular focus in Black and Brown communities, because small businesses can be such wonderful engines of growth and development. But we know that they have been, again, disproportionately impacted by the events of the last year. And so everything that we can do to kind of help them get back on their feet and to help some of these wonderful entrepreneurs succeed in this area, that's a real priority for us.
That's fantastic. And it helps, Andy, to have someone like yourself who is homegrown, who understands the pains of the community and also, where we can be. So I'm glad that you're leading the show there, I guess, at Capital One
Yeah,
in
I
this
will say,
area.
Denise, the one painful part or whatever is looking at the picture of Mr. Williams behind you and remembering much better days of Washington football. But thank you for representing some of the great parts of our hometown.
Yeah, you know this, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely.
And Frederick Douglass is back
Shedding
there
a
as
little
well.
tear as we're talking here.
All right. Well, thank both of you all for being with us today. And, we want to do what we can to, like you said, Akite, to get the word out and tell our friends and family members, to go ahead and get that vaccine and know that Capital One is a partner, not only with you all, but also in the community. So I want to thank you all for joining us today and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Take care.
All righty. Okay, doke. So, there's just so much that we need to know about just this vaccine, and we know that people are just not doing it. And but when you make it available and accessible, I want to say that Cora Berry and the folks over at the Southeast Tennis and Learning Center had a great turnout last Saturday. The entertainment sports arena here in Ward 8 is also opening up, or has opened up for vaccines. We heard today that Arena Stage is opening up as well as a vaccine center in Southwest. So there are more and more places now to access the vaccines. And so if you want one, and I think the mayor is going to open up for people of all ages in the District of Columbia pretty soon to get that. So I'm telling you, I mean, if you come to Win TV one day and I've disappeared, then you could probably blame it on the vaccine. I wouldn't, but but I'm still here. That's the point. And there's proof of the pudding, and I'm feeling great. So go on and get it, and let's knock this thing out so we can move on and begin to live our lives again. Up next is Richard Reyes Gavilan, and I want Richard. Is he there?
I am here.
Richard, am I saying your last name properly?
That's good. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I'm so glad to have you here. Boy, what an institution it is that you're running in the District of Columbia, the DC Public Library. And I focused in on the Martin Luther King Library, but I think you oversee all the libraries in the district. Is that correct?
That is correct. All 26 of them.
Wow. Wow. So I know we had to shut down for COVID. But where are we now as we celebrate? How do you celebrate National Library Week when the libraries are closed? So you all are doing some great things, and so maybe you're opening up. Tell me where we are.
Yeah, and Denise, thank you first of all for having me. And I'll take issue with your phrasing of the library being closed.
Okay.
We have not closed. We certainly had to shift our priorities from physical to virtual, but I can share with you some really incredible numbers over just the past year, where we've had things like 400,000 books borrowed, or 1 million ebooks borrowed, almost 2,000 virtual events on the library's Facebook page and other channels. So we've been really busy providing services online, but we've also been providing what I like to call transactional services at most of our branches are open, where you can go in and borrow a book, you can get on a computer, you can use the restroom, you can have something printed out for free. So we are offering some services. We're just not doing, obviously, the level of detailed programming that we're accustomed to prior to COVID. We are excited, obviously, about I heard you talking about the vaccine earlier, that so many more of us are getting vaccinated. And I think that gives us some flexibility in terms of expanding. And we are looking forward to expanding services in May. So more hours, more libraries, and all that information will be made available soon, I hope.
I am still stuck on the number of books that have been borrowed over there. How does that compare to a normal?
Well, for physical books, I believe it was about half as much as we had done the year before. But the thing about library users is that they're very loyal. once you become a library, it's almost like when you become loyal to a bank or something like that. People want to get their library books come hell or high water, and they'll do that. So we're really excited about the services that we provided, even during the height of the pandemic last year.
The library has been here in the District of Columbia for 125 years. Are there any highlights or any historical facts that people need to know about that you just don't think about? I mean, how the library system grew, anything, especially when you came and said, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, you bet. So on June 3rd, we will actually celebrate our 125th anniversary as the DC Public Library. So we were around a lot earlier than DC Home Rule, and we've got lots and lots of stories. Certainly over the past 5 or 10 years, as we've been looking at the MLK Library, this building is full of amazing stories. When we opened in 1972, this was the first memorial to Dr. King in Washington, D.C., and really one of the most significant memorials to Dr. King in the entire country when this building opened up in 1972. It was designed by one of the maybe 2 or 3 most famous architects in the entire world, in Mies van der Rohe, the great German-American architect. And beyond that, we have just a really long history of serving the public at a neighborhood level, and we're really excited about the future, especially with all the new services that we're offering. It's a lot different than it was when I was a kid.
I think back to when you say when you're a kid, and I think back to, the library has become not only from these buildings all across the city, but then we ended up, I remember on Alabama Avenue once, there used to be a little library kiosk, right?
Okay,
a little building that was on the corner. And then, those of us that were kids remember the bookmobile, the portable or the whatever mobile library that used to come through the neighborhoods. And so, I know that some of those things don't exist anymore, but then they're little libraries still in communities. I know there's one, again, still one on Alabama Avenue that you'd be amazed when you go in and see how much is there. So what has the mobility of people or the library, how's the library become more mobile over the years?
Yeah, so one thing I say all the time is that libraries are not their buildings. We really are a service, and we try to get into people's homes and communities as much as humanly possible. We actually still do have a version of the bookmobile. We call it DC on the Go-Go, and it is a tech truck where you can go and you can learn how to use some emerging technologies, and we'll use it to distribute free books at festivals. We're in Ward 7 and 8 all the time, and we've got great partners all around the city. So it's important that that we still have some of these services that you might remember from when you were a kid still do exist. But then certainly when you start talking about everything that we can do virtually for residents, so all the programming that we offer on Facebook and all the services that we offer through the library's website, dclibrary.org, people are amazed when I tell them about not just the hundreds of thousands of ebooks that we have available for free, but streaming video and film and learning content and so much more. So it's just a wide variety of services and content that we offer, much more so than when I was a kid.
It sounds exciting. We're going to catch up with that mobile library on the go-go. We're going
That's
to catch
exactly
up
right.
with that.
Very cool.
I'll get more information about that from you. That sounds really cool, as you said. So, we're again running out of time, but is there anything that you want to share with us right now that people need to know and can participate in maybe within the next week or so?
Well, I'll tell you this. I know we're running out of time, but it is National Library Week here in DC and across the country between April 4th and April 11th. So it's a very important time for me as a library director and librarian to thank all the hardworking library staff some of whom get a lot of credit for the great programs that they do, but many of whom are working behind the scenes to make sure that our buildings are clean and that they're safe, or that they're signing contracts in offices. A lot of people do a lot of work to make sure that our libraries are running as wonderfully as DC Public Library does. And then pivoting, I mentioned June 3rd as the 125th anniversary of DC Public Library. All of our open libraries are going to be doing backpack giveaways and new library card signups with a new 125th anniversary logo and a new DCPL logo. Very exciting, very colorful, something for everyone. And we look forward to seeing everyone out once again. Masks on.
Well, we're going to continue to share that information. It sounds like a lot of fun. And I'm so glad to see that our library is alive and thriving, and that you're at the helm and making sure that, you know, it's accessible to everybody. And so thank you so very much. I mean, like you said, the library lives. So, and thanks for correcting me. I think the emphasis on the fact that it's still open. It didn't close.
we have been open.
Right.
Different open.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Richard, for being with us. And we'll see you on June 5th.
3rd.
Thank you. On June 3rd. Don't forget that, Sherry. June 3rd. Okay. Thanks so much.
Denise.
All
Good
right.
talking to you
Have a
again.
great day. Thank you. Have a great weekend. So yeah, that is really exciting with regards to our DC Public Library. Speaking of library and history and things that are going on, what better time now to just stop and have a little catch up on Black history facts with our own Lindiwe Valakazi. We'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Win TV's Black Facts. On April 9th, entertainer Josephine Baker dies in 1975. April 10th, popular Black sitcom A Different World actress Jasmine Guy was born in 1964. On April 11th, 1997, the new Museum of African American History opened in Detroit, Michigan, being the first of its kind in the world. April 12, 1810, the African Insurance Company was created in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, being the first Black-owned insurance company in the United States. On April 13, 1946, singer Al Green was born in Forest City, Arkansas. On April 14, 2002, Tiger Woods won his third Masters golf title, becoming the second golfer to ever win 2 titles in a row. And on April 15, 1894, blues and jazz vocalist Bessie Smith was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Reporting from the Washington Informer, this is Lindiwe Valakazi.
Thank you so much, Lindiwe. I was always glad to have you to catch us up on Black History Facts, because that's what we celebrate all day, every day, 365 days of the year. And speaking of news, we just got word that rapper DMX, his family has pulled him off of life support, and that he has died. I'm not sure how old he was, Chevry, but we know he's young. And so our hearts go out to his family and all of his fans all over the world. We will be missing him, but not his music. His music lives. So joining us now is Keith Anderson with the DC Department of General Services. Hey, Keith, how are you?
Well, and yourself? Hi, Denise.
Good. I like that. Build, sustain. I don't know what's in the middle, but build, maintain, and sustain our communities. Got it.
Maintain and sustain. That's it. That's what we do.
Right. And so, how and what? Now, you're with Environmental Services there at the.
No, I'm actually the director of the Department of General Services.
Right. How in the world did I get that wrong? Okay.
We do have a pretty significant energy and environmental sustainability and energy division that handles a lot of work for us.
Yeah. And this we really wanted to sort of key in on the environment and Earth Day when we think about the environment. We've had folks on we've had the Anacostia Riverkeeper. We're getting ready to have folks on from DC Woods, you as well. But I think the real issue for us is that while there's a movement, a an international movement to restore the earth. We don't see a lot of people like you and me, Keith, in the stories that are told about what Black folks are doing to keep our environment safe. So talk to me, one, about, why you're directing an agency that finds this as a priority.
Absolutely, we find it as a priority because when you look at greenhouse gas emissions, the two biggest culprits are buildings and transportation. Just over the last year during this pandemic, we've seen the world essentially stop. And that had exponential benefits on our environment. We've seen the effects of wildlife and greenhouse gas, the reduction of greenhouse gases with the pandemic, that if there is a silver lining with this. At the Department of General Services, our job is to build, maintain, and sustain the District of Columbia's real estate portfolio. Denise, what that means is we manage 157 million square feet of land and almost 40 million square feet of buildings. That includes our education facilities like Anacostia Senior High School, Ballou Senior High School, all the parks and recreation facilities, as well as all the municipal buildings. And it is our mission to ensure that the buildings that we build and maintain on behalf of the residents of the District of Columbia are as sustainable as humanly possible. We have two projects, one that I visited this morning. I'm proud to say that the new Banneker Senior High School will be a net zero facility. And that is a major step for an education facility of that size to be net zero.
So, and what does that mean?
That means it produces more energy than it uses. So Pepco, in terms of getting power from Pepco, that would be a secondary source. The building will be able to generate its own energy to sustain itself. And this is the direction, if we're going to really be serious about cutting greenhouse gas emissions, things of that nature. This is the direction that we're going in. The Department of General Services, in partnership with our client agencies, especially the Department of Energy and Environment, to ensure that our buildings are sustainable. And
I know that there's a goal. I think the mayor has a goal, right, for the district to increase. Can you share what her
Yeah, she has a very ambitious goal. Yes, to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2032. And so, in order to get there, we have to be very intentional, smart, and work with our partners in order to make sure our buildings are energy efficient and that we rethink how we move about the city. But when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions, these buildings are your number one culprit.
Now, not too long ago, there was a ribbon cutting ceremony, maybe about 2 weeks ago, over at Oxen Run. Right. Okay. At Oxen Run with the, I guess everybody knows today, because I keep talking about Southeast, that we work in, and I live in Southeast. So I see a lot of what's going on in the community. And I watched all of those solar panels being built over there at Oxen Run. And it's an amazing scene visually. But can you talk about that and the impact that that's going to have on residents?
So that was probably one of the best projects that I've been a part of, Denise. It is one of those projects that before the solar panels were installed, we already had tremendous benefits to the Ward 8 community. First of all, Oxen Run is the largest park in the District of Columbia's portfolio. And before we can even begin to install those solar panels, can you believe we hauled over 200 tons of trash away from that site? So that was the first benefit for the community. The second was that we had local businesses working on that project. So there's an economic development side to that project. Now that the project is complete, I'm proud to say that the solar panels cover 5 acres. 5 acres. There's 7,488 panels out there that covers about 5 acres of land. And through this project, we're able to assist 780 households with their utility bills, and they will realize just about a 50% reduction in their utility bills for years to come. And so this is one of those projects that just It was a win-win for everyone from the onset. And I couldn't be more proud to install those solar panels in the Ward 8 community for Ward 8 residents.
I know we have photographs from that event. I'm sorry we didn't bring those up because I'm sure people driving by. I mean, we used to see that big old lot over there with just nothing, and so now with the solar panels, we feel like we're in a new century. Finally, we've caught up, and it's glad that it's a good thing that residents have local residents are going to benefit from that. And so, are there any other not only projects, but I guess one of the things as we have viewers listening, I mean, there are two things. One, I want to still go back to the fact of why you think we don't see enough Black people sort of portrayed in this whole environmental issue, and why it was even important for you personally. Where you grew up, was there something, that motivated you to say, this is important. This is going to be a priority to me in my administration, besides what the mayor wants to do.
Right. Denise, I would push back a little bit. I never forget, this is the last conversation I had with the late Marion Barry. And when I said to him, people of color were sustainable before it was cool. Think about growing up in that pot of grease that your grandmother reused on the side of the stove. Think about how we used to reuse things around the household and even wear hand-me-downs. We were reducing, reusing, and recycling way before it was a thing. So I think people of color, because of circumstances, always had to have some type of sustainability. But as a native Washingtonian, someone who is a product of DC Public Schools, I realized very early, that's right, I realized very early on the importance of maintaining or having a healthy environment for generations to come. We have to have clean air, we have to have clean water, and our soil has to be clean in order to have a healthy environment. And so, Anacostia has been a sore eye for DC for many years, but not anymore, because the Anacostia River is getting healthier and healthier. And the work that we're doing in and around our buildings, I encourage folks to read the Sustainable DC Plan 2.0. You can find that at sustainable.dc.gov to figure out what sustainability really means and how you can help. But as far as people of color, I think, for one, we do have a connection to the environment, and I would like to see us educate each other more about the importance of sustainability, about the importance of energy efficiency, about the importance of energy efficiency in your home, not just on the electricity side, but water as well, because it does have a real impact on the quality of your life.
You said something there, and that is how you can help. And that's one of the messages that we want to get out. I know that it's been a great thing to see a lot of community gardens that people, have installed all over the city. And there's still a lot of trash, we got a lot of trash. But yes, how individuals can help in this whole movement of sustainability. And so are you all involved in any other initiatives that the community should know about?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Oxen Run being the largest park in DPR's inventory, we are building an outdoor fitness center because one thing we've learned through COVID, we need to get out and exercise.
Where?
It's going to be in Oxen Run. I don't have the exact location, but it will be in Oxen Run Park, an outdoor fitness center that has apparatuses that you can use your body weight to get healthy. We'll also, I'm proud to say this, we're also installing a Portland Loo in the same location as the outdoor fitness center. The Portland Loo is a public restroom. And so, Denise, you love Oxen Run Park. I love Oxen Run Park. But as a father, sometimes when you have children, the last thing you want to have to do is make a mad dash to the restroom somewhere. So to benefit the Ward 8 community, we're putting a Portland Loo in Oxen Run so that we can have a public restroom in the park. We're also looking at upgrading the playground there as well. We're going to demo the current playground and design a new one. I had an opportunity to speak to the Friends of Oxen Run Park yesterday, and I understand what their commitment and their needs are for that park. So it's an exciting time for Oxen Run Park, and I couldn't be happier to bring that to the Ward 8 community.
Yeah, this is going to be fantastic. It's another jewel in the community, and folks are beginning to get out into it. It's got some beautiful greenery, some unique plants, interesting wildlife. I've seen wild turkeys and fox over there, and
that is the sign of a healthy environment. And by removing 200 tons of trash, by pulling those solar systems in, by taking care of the park with the Oxen Run, with the Friends of Oxen Run, we're really making a difference in Ward 8, and I couldn't be happier.
Well, I'm going to end on. Oh, go ahead. No. I guess I was going to. But
just one fun fact for the
listeners. Go ahead. All
right. In terms of cherry trees, the second oldest legacy cherry trees, other than the tidal basin, are located in Oxen Run Park. Just wanted you to know that.
Well, that I knew. I've been trying to locate them, though, because when they talk about the cherry trees, of course, and they say don't come downtown. I'm like, well, I'm going to keep ours a secret so folks won't come riding over here. But I'm not quite sure where they are.
I'll be happy to show you.
Okay. All right. That'll be wonderful. We've lost the blossoms already, but I'll know where to look next year. I appreciate that.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this. Feel free to come anytime, because we want folks to know, what's going on that's benefiting their community. And it sounds like your office is right there doing the right things to make our communities really healthy places to live. So we appreciate you.
Thank you.
All righty. Okay. Have a good weekend. Yeah, we have cherry blossoms in Southeast and Ward 8, and I'm so glad that Keith raised that and shared that with us. And so we're going to find them. He's going to help us to go out and identify where they are so we can share those with you. But we're talking about cherry blossoms in Oxen Run Park. I understand we have a beach in Southeast as well. Hey, Nathan, how are you?
Hello, good. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Nathan is the executive director or founder of Ward 8 Woods.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And so, we always call it park or woods, but what are the woods that you're working in, Nathan?
Well, in Ward 8, there's more than 500 acres of forested parkland, which actually doesn't include the DPR properties of Oxen Run Park that we were talking about. It includes mostly federal parkland. There's three major chunks of that. One of it is what they call Oxen Run Parkway, which is the forested area that's east of the city-owned area. So that starts at 13th Street and goes down to Southern Avenue in the area of United Medical Center and the Arc. And that's probably the most pristine area, forested area that we have in Ward 8. There's a beautiful upland area with a lot of oak trees and beech and mountain laurel. And then there's a rare ecosystem known as a magnolia bog. And also the remains of military installations, because that was all part of the Camp Sims military reservation. And then there's Shepherd Parkway, which is 197 acres of woods running along 295 from St. E's all the way down to DC Village. And then, of course, there's Fort Stanton Park on the heights above historic Anacostia. And then the fourth major area that Ward 8 Woods focuses on rejuvenating are the woods along both sides of Suitland Parkway. And those belong to the DC Department of Transportation.
I don't want to get you into trouble, but, we the folks that live in this community, observe that it is a very green area, maybe one of the greenest in the city. And a lot of it is owned by the U.S. Park Service. Yeah. And, sometimes we feel as though it's been ignored by the Park Service and allowed to end up in the state in which it had become.
Absolutely.
Before individuals like yourself got involved and the volunteers that you work with. But how did you discover these areas?
Well, I was born in DC, grew up in Rockville, Maryland, and have lived in Congress Heights since 2009. I've always been an outdoorsman, Eagle Scout, went to church camp. And so one of the things that I love about Ward 8 is that there is so much green space. When back in those days, I was attending the Congress Heights Community Association meetings where I met Philip Pennell, who's been really focused on environmental justice, along with so many other things for so long. So when he learned about what my interests were, he invited me to be chair of a committee under that neighborhood association to focus on Shepherd Parkway. And that's how I got started. I led committee to restore Shepherd Parkway since 2012. And since that time, we've been having these monthly volunteer events where we just remove hundreds of thousands of pounds of trash. But to your question about the neglect, first of all, I think it's important to remember that why our parklands are federal is the legacy of the lack of home rule. Essentially, until home rule, everything in DC was federal, and a lot of it still is. Now, in theory, that ought to bring prestige to our parks to have them be part of the national park system, but the reality on the ground has not been good. And I want to be clear, I have tremendous respect for my colleagues who work in the Park Service. They are all dedicated public servants, but they are hopelessly understaffed. And I sympathize with that because I was a teacher in Prince George's County Public Schools for 8 years. And I always felt like I was set up to fail because it was one of me and 160 students. And, I could work 80 hours a week and it would never be good enough. And I'm afraid it's the same way for my friends in National Capital Parks East, which is the unit that includes all the federal parkland on the eastern half of DC and in Prince George's County. So there's just a lack of resources in the Park Service nationwide. Even when you go to the National Mall, you see things are falling apart and not properly maintained. And that's a place that attracts millions of tourists and is integral to the economy. We layer on top of that the pattern of environmental racism, where pollution is concentrated in working class communities of color. And you end up with the decades of neglect that we've seen. And Ward 8 Woods is really focused on trying to undo that and engage residents in the process.
That's one of the things that I like about Ward 8 Woods is the fact that, you along with members of the community have taken this into your own hands to clean up these woodlands or parklands. And so what is the plan? I know that I've read where we're talking about walking paths. We're talking about what's going to happen now that when we get it cleaned up. How do we get people in to really enjoy what we have over here?
Yeah. So, one way of looking at our aims is comparing the woods in Ward 8 to Rock Creek Park. Rock Creek Park has more than 30 miles of hiking trails. They're pretty well maintained. They are beloved by people who live nearby. And there's really no reason why it can't be the same way in Southeast. There are a couple of existing trails that we're working to maintain. The Fort Circle Hiker Biker Trail, which starts across from the Anacostia Museum, goes through Fort Stanton, and then it actually continues through Ward 7 all the way up to Grant Street Northeast. And then there's the George Washington Carver Trail, which is in the woods behind the Anacostia Museum along the north side of Suitland Parkway. But the vast majority of the area, the parkland in Ward 8, the forested parkland, is theoretically belongs to the people. Theoretically, it's open to the public. But who's going to go walking when there's no trail, there's no map, you have to do bushwhacking, which is, I do that, but not many other people want to do that. It's uncomfortable and potentially dangerous. And so we're envisioning ultimately what could be as much as 10 miles of trail network. And the first leg that we're proposing this year would be on the north side of Suitland Parkway, about 2 miles through the woods, parallel to the parkway and the existing bike trail from Pomeroy Road on the west end to Southern Avenue on the east end. Eventually, we'd like to have a trail following that same route, but on the south side of the parkway to make like a 4-mile loop.
I know our time is tight, but I'm curious, there's been a lot of construction on 295. And some of that it looks like we've lost some of the park area. Yeah. Not that it was used, but some of that park area. What was the balance there? Was there any conversation that that you all were involved in as they were negotiating the space that they needed to expand 295?
So those conversations took place in before I became involved in this in 2011. The General Services Administration, which is in charge of building that new Homeland Security headquarters at St. Elizabeth West Campus, essentially told the community in Ward 8 that there were going to be, I think, 14,000 workers ultimately on that campus, and that if they did not want all of those cars on Malcolm X Avenue and Martin Luther King Avenue, they needed to rebuild the interchange to include a ramp that would lead directly from 295 onto the campus. And in order to do that, they needed to cut down 8 acres of federal parkland that was part of Shepherd Parkway. And my understanding is that most of the community leaders, when given that, two bad choices, cut down the woods or clog our neighborhood with commuter traffic, they supported the rebuilding of the interchange. The Park Service fought against it to try to keep it as parkland, but they lost because they were able to play the national security card, the General Services and Homeland Security were. So 8 acres got cut down, and I can only imagine what would have happened if they had tried to do the same thing in Rock Creek or C&O Canal or any number of other places where residents have more political and social capital to make their voices heard and taken seriously in government. So I think that's a reflection of environmental racism and bias, the fact that they thought that they could come in and do that, and they actually did. Park Service did receive some funds as mitigation for that, and some of those funds have been used as part of a concept planning process for improvements to Shepherd Parkway. They did come out with a concept plan last December, but we've yet to see specifics on exactly what that's going to look like.
Well, we're going to stick with you to find out, how that evolves, because we know that you're going to be there at the table. And I know as a result of the loss of all that parkland, we found more, wildlife in our backyards and on our streets. Which was really, really interesting. But we knew where that they too were being displaced as a result of that growth. Yeah. Let me ask lastly, you work with a lot of volunteers. I'm pretty sure that, your volunteer crew has probably grown from yourself and one person to, I hope, many others. But is that the case? And if there's someone watching who really wants to be a part of this, how can they volunteer with you all?
Absolutely. So our website is actually under construction right now, but you can still go to it, ward8woods.org. And you can still register for our volunteer events, which are regularly scheduled the first Saturday and the second Saturday of every month. And we were recently able to increase the capacity for each of those events to 35 people. So you can go on and sign up. We're also happy to host other groups at other times. And I can't leave without talking about our Park Steward program. This is really the heart and soul of what we do. We employ currently 4 Ward 8 residents. We seek out people who have barriers to employment, people who have been to jail, have spotty work history, who for various reasons have had trouble getting and keeping jobs, and we give them an opportunity to work in their own community, removing trash, cutting back invasive species, doing green jobs training. Right now, we're being trained on how to build and maintain trails so that we'll be ready to do that if and when we ever get permission from the city and the Park Service to put in new trails. And they work every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. In fact, as soon as I get off here, I got to go load the truck and take everything to the Fort Totten dump, because we've been doing around 2,000 pounds each and every day that we work. Wow. And more than that on the days when we have volunteer groups.
Well, I personally, Nathan, I'm going to say thank you as a Ward 8 resident, and on behalf of my neighbors, we want to say thank you for the work that you're doing. One, to restore the earth as we celebrate Earth Day, but also to make our parks livable, great places to visit in our community. I thank you so very much. And as I say, always make this a place to call home if you have information you want to share about what Ward 8 Woods is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I always remind people the environment is not just about the Arctic or the Amazon or the Grand Canyon. It's where we breathe.
It looks like Nathan froze.
You can't.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Okay.
Spotty internet. Yeah. But just to wrap up, you can't separate the environment from all the other issues that are going on. It's understandable with everything going on in Ward 8. The environment usually isn't a focus, but at Ward 8 Woods, we're trying to use it as a tool to heal and empower people.
That's a great place to do it too. So. Again, thank you so very much, and we will stay in touch.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great weekend, and hopefully you won't get caught in the rain as you're delivering trash.
Oh, yeah.
All righty. So this brings us to the end of another segment of Win TV. Boy, there's a lot going on in our communities to make our communities safe, to restore the earth. It's environmental. Earth Day coming up on April the 22nd. And so I hope that you all will, if you know anybody that's doing anything in the community that we can highlight, that's helping to restore the earth. I'm talking about community gardens, trash cleanups, incentives to get young people involved. Yeah, reach out to us at news@washingtoninformer.com. We want to hear your story. And we certainly would like to have you join us as we share that with our viewers. So that brings us to the end of another segment of Win TV. I'm Denise Rollard Barnes. Again, stay tuned for WI Bridge TV that's coming up next with the Media Prints and also Sounds of the DMV. And until next week, have a great weekend.
Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to the 10th episode of What's Going On DC. Are you ready? First up, the Washington football team announces its 17 games for the 2021 season, as well as their opponents. Take a look. In Let's Be Outside news, all DC residents ages 16 and up will be eligible for the COVID vaccine starting April 19th. In music, our favorite girl Ari Lennox teams up with Queen Naja for their new track, Set 'Em Up. Now look ladies, don't start no setting up trend now, you hear? DMV's own Dayon Green is the semifinalist for BET's Amplified. Congratulations. Congratulations also to DMV's own super producer Harto with his first #1 debut on Billboard with Wild Rays. Our music scene is winning. That's what I'm talking about. Shout out to Bowie State University as they make HBCU history as the first university to build stop motion animation studios. Okay, communication majors, that's a win for our industry. Martha's Table announces all DC residents can now access the Martha's Table Outfitter Boutique virtually. We love seeing organizations giving back. This Outfitters will help so many of our residents, from baby outfits to kids to adults. And yes, if you're getting that new job, they definitely have a suit just for you. DC officials announced a number of relaxations in COVID restrictions. Didn't I say it's giving outside again? We'll take a look at all the relaxations. I am definitely in need of a movie night and a trip to the museum. Feed me art. Our Southeast baby, Taraji P. Henson, yeah, you can tell that's our favorite, right? Is People Magazine's most beautiful people. Well, duh. You know what DC stands for, divinely captivating. Great news, guys. Our beloved Crystal Skating Ring, also known as Temple Hill Skating Ring, is no longer closing. We spoke on this last week. Go subscribe now. That was a plug, and it wasn't shameless. So let's get serious. This weekend, the Free Tony Lewis rally will be held on Black Lives Matter Plaza tomorrow from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Let's get out there and get some justice. Now, before we leave, y'all all know this challenge, right? And for the older folks watching, no, I am not tripping. Well, it's never looked better with the help of Go-Go and Drew Keys. Take a look.
Curtis gang. Face shots to the face, don't trip on your legs.
On the keys, so this shit not.
Mafia. Run the way I pop a bean, knock your lens off. Try to rest how to stand off. Get a little spot. Knock your dreads off. My West Coast guy. I be laying the red alone. Running in my Reebok. Ride with a T-shirt. I want these shots. Truckin' man.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This was the 10th episode of What's Going On DC. Again, I'm your boy, the Media Prince. For all this and more, head over to wibridgedc.com and remember to follow the hashtags WGODC and WIBridgeTMP style so you can get all the latest gear. All right, we'll see you back for episode 11. Then go join your weekend.
Yeah. Look, my bank account is not negative, and nor are my thoughts. I try to think it could be worse, I could be going to court. Thank God I'm not in the cell, don't have a cancerous cell. Try not to eat the chicken, still trying to get chicken as well. I represent where I dwell, I do be doing it well. Nobody do it like I do it, they don't even well. I kill the show, collect the dough, and then my name people yell. Cause I say hold up, they say hold up, put the weed in the air. Like, hold up, hold up, hold up. Nowhere to be, let's roll up, I say hold up, hold up. Freaky, freaky, wild girl, freaky, freaky, wild. Just cause it's bigger, not necessarily better. Like she can have a figure, but that don't mean that she weather. However, I've been getting my shit together, steering clear with no fear, storming through stormy weather. Whatever. You can do it, you can do it. Take the time and train your mind that you can do it. It ain't nothing to it, once you do it, make it move and move it. Don't be scared to do it. Yeah. It's all positive vibes, and all these J's sparked up like it's the 4th of July. But we celebrate Juneteenth. All our basement trees is in rotation. What's up, Stink? Yeah, that's my sis, and that's my dog. We used to do a lot of shit, but we grew up and evolved, and it's just a matter of time before we be richer, cause we really rich inside of our mind. All these Jews that I found inside of myself, making big moves with my music. Yeah, I'm proud of myself, but I'm proud of you too. If you listening, look, I know you got some shit you've been through, but it, do what you do, cause you can do it, you can do it. Take the time and train your mind that you can do it. It ain't nothing to it, once you do it, make you move and move it. Don't be scared to do it. You can do it, you can do it. Take the time and train your mind that you can do it. It ain't nothing to it, once you do it, make you move and move it. Don't be scared to do it. Hey, uptown, dicky, dicky, do it. Southside, dicky, dicky, do it. Hey, northeast, dicky, dicky, do it. Hey, southwest, dicky, do it. Hey, Merlin, dicky, dicky, do it. Hey, Ricky, dicky, do it. Hey, VA, hold up, and pass me the J. Hold up, and go and shake, get her the gang, get her the gang, gang, gang.